Aftab, brother, thank you so much for being here today. The whole idea of these conversations is just for like short conversations with others where they talk about things where other people who might watch these videos would learn something new. So thanks a lot for being here, and I'm sure people who watch this video will learn something new. Maybe you can start a little by talking a little bit about how we met each other.
Yeah, sounds good, bro. I met you, Arjun, at near Robin's house, actually. My friend Robin, who's like my longtime friend from Sydney, he moved to Melbourne a few years ago, and he lives right across the hall from you. So one day we met, one night actually, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. It was good. We had some tea, we had some chats, bit of this, bit of that. Not too bad.
that was pretty fun. And you were visiting from Sydney.
Yeah. So I grew up in Sydney. I've been here my whole life. I grew up in the Blacktown area, until I was about 11 or 12 years old. And then I moved to the Hills area, which is a bit northwest. And I've been here pretty much ever since. I did have about a year or so, under a year that I spent in London. That was about 2018, 20, yeah, 2018-ish. So apart from that, I've been here for quite some time. I know the ins and outs of the city, and yeah.
Awesome. And for people who don't know much about Sydney, Australia, how would you describe it? What would be the diverse breakup of the city? What's it like as a city living there, studying there?
Yeah, so Sydney is a pretty interesting city. It's a very large city by land. So kind of east to west, you've got on the east side, you've got Bondi and the beaches there. And on the west, you've got the Penrith side. On the north, you've got the beaches up there up to Palm Beach. Um, and on the south, you've got up to like the Campbelltown area. So it's a pretty spread out city. It's kind of in the shape of like an arrow pointing towards the east. So the tail of the arrow is very long, and so the western suburbs are a large proportion of the city geographically. Growing up, I think culturally it is quite diverse, but I feel like Sydney has a lot of cultural pockets rather than like a mixture of different cultures into different areas. For example, Western Sydney, you've got a lot more ethnic groups like people of Arab backgrounds, Indian, Asian backgrounds, people in the north, more older generational Australians, Caucasian. South also a little bit, and East definitely a lot more Aussies and people whose families have been here for multiple generations. So yeah, it's
Okay.
interesting, but very bubbly in the sense of there's different bubbles of different groups of people. Um, but overall, it's a great city, and people obviously want to come and live here. It's rated always the second most desirable city in the world. I think Melbourne's like sixth or something. But I like Melbourne. It's a more accessible city, and it's not as expensive as Sydney. Sydney's house prices are insane, some of the craziest in the world.
Okay. So yeah, you were actually just in Melbourne. So if you were to compare the two, you'd say Sydney's more expensive in terms of real estate.
Yeah, so real estate impacts a lot of things. Real estate impacts pretty much your happiness in a sense. So what I mean by that is if you live far from the city, um, corporate corporate jobs, which make up a large proportion of the occupational workforce, becomes very difficult to access due to public transport, long commute times. I feel that contributes to your overall happiness levels. So you can either sacrifice that and live closer to the city, which means that you won't be able to save enough money, which means that it'll be harder for you to actually buy a place if you want to buy a house. If you want to buy an apartment, that's all right. That's not a bad story. But maybe the value of the apartment might not grow as much. Whereas if you buy a house, even in Western Sydney, even far away, 45 kilometers from the city, your house value will go up hundreds of thousands of dollars every couple of years, right? Which is pretty significant in terms of capital growth, in terms of making actual like growing your assets, growing your house, your land value. So yeah, it's a interesting city. I feel like it's a very, you know, 80-20 city or 90-10 or 99-1 city in the sense of, you know, 20% of the value of the houses, sorry, 80% of all the value of the houses reside in 20% of the area in the eastern area or maybe a bit of the north. Which makes it hard to crack into those places to actually buy um a house. But apart from that, it's a great city. It's got a lot of diversity, a lot of opportunities, um, and people are quite receptive and welcoming.
Okay. And you were talking a bit about how you felt like Melbourne is more accessible.
Oh yeah. I think Melbourne is more accessible in the sense of well, because I'm on a Sydney, I'm making Sydney money, so I'm coming to Melbourne, and I'm like, oh, cool. This is accessible. I could live here. You know, the rent's not too bad. I could live near the city. Trams are free. There's more cool things going on. I feel like the culture is a little bit more friendly and welcoming than Sydney. Um, and it just seems more fun.
And what about coffee culture? I think Melbourne is quite big on coffee culture. How would you compare that to Sydney?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Sydney, so coffee culture is all I know. So it's not like I'm coming from, the UK or the US where I'm drinking like some Starbucks or some crap coffee. Like even down my street, there's really good coffee. In my area, there's good coffee. In the city, there's tons of good coffee places. The problem is, not the problem, but Melbourne's coffee culture is, yeah, it's another level. A lot more people care a lot more about nuances on the coffee and, little things like that. Like I went to Patricia's, which I heard was like one of the most, interesting, prestigious, whatever coffee places. And the guy's got a little thermometer in there and this and that. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. But to be honest, for me, it's like, does it taste good? If yes, I'm cool with it. If I can taste a few flavors, market lane coffee, this and that, I'm happy. Um, I know what nice coffee tastes like. I know what like 7-Eleven coffee tastes like, or Easy Mart, or one of those places. It's nice. It's nice to have a little bit of the difference, but yeah, I guess it's cool. I don't drink alcohol, so caffeine is my next interesting choice of beverage. Cold, hot, like I'm drinking like iced green tea right now, which is nothing special. It's like Twinings
Okay.
decaf green tea. Put a bit of ice in it. Yeah. Melbourne coffee culture is good. Cafe culture is nice. There's a lot of hipster kind of places, a lot more than Sydney. A lot more eccentric people in Melbourne, which is good, and a lot more. I felt people are friendlier. But the thing is, maybe it's because I'm in a different headspace. I'm in a different mindset when I'm there. I don't have commitments. I don't have things to do. I can go to the gym whenever I want to. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to think about what time I go to sleep. I can meet the types of people I want to meet, and stuff like that. So it's not too bad for me. Um, yeah, I think people are friendly out there, like yourself. So
I
tell me
agree.
about your experience in Melbourne.
I think my experience has been pretty good. I used to live in Perth. Perth has more of a dry heat, but
Yeah.
Melbourne, like you're saying, I think the most interesting thing is it's very hipster. Some pockets are very hipster. Like I'm sure you know Collingwood, um, where else? Fitzroy.
Yeah,
These
we were in
places are,
Fitzroy.
yeah. Wouldn't you say like it's a bit quirky and maybe a bit eccentric and yeah, a little eccentric and sorry, that smoke was a bit distracting. A little eccentric, and also the colors and even the markets that they have there. They're all
Yeah.
like a place you haven't been to before, you could say.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're right. I met a lot of people there. And they were very friendly. They were very good. I met most of the people I met were like around the state library. People are just chilling there. And it kind of got me thinking about like interacting with people. And I interact with a lot of people and I made a lot of friends. Like even that guy you met, Evan, right? That guy, remember the BJJ guy we brought to Fitzroy?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
That guy was just a bouncer at some place, and I met him and started hanging out. And I only met him like the day before or something.
Oh wow,
Um, so yeah, people are more friendly, but it really taught me a lesson actually. When I came to Melbourne, it was like the lesson was that I only want to spend my time with people that want to spend their time with me. Do you know what I mean? I
100%.
I want to only want to talk to people or interact with people that are, I guess, open to meeting me. I don't want to be talking to people that I don't care about or that don't care about me. Does that make a little bit of sense?
100%. You want it to be reciprocal where the energies are at least matched. You don't want to
Yeah.
spend time with someone who's on the fence because you're kind of
Yeah.
putting in a lot of effort. You're not even sure if it's being reciprocated.
Yeah, and I think as pe people, we know when things aren't reciprocated. We know, but we choose to stuff it down and we choose to not listen to it because we live in a bit of a fantasy of, oh, maybe this person, they're really cool. They want to talk to me, but they don't. You don't see the results for that. They don't actually do that. So then you come and get into, a bit of a chasing mentality of like, oh yeah, I want to be with the cool kids. I want to do this. I want to do that with those kind of people, but they don't want to hang out with you, and it just reinforces in your mind that you should continuously be chasing and going after things that really aren't for you. So it taught me a lot about that. It's a bit weird, like I don't mean it in a philosophical sense. I just mean it in like a taught me a little bit more about myself. Like, oh yeah, why do I try to go after stuff that's not for me or that's not being reciprocated for me? Because it's a bit yeah, it's a bit it's not really aligned with who you are kind of thing.
But being able to filter out, that is a bit hard. I guess it's easier said than done.
It's not really. I don't think it's easier said than done. I think it's actually easier done because you already know people who want to hang out with you, but you just don't seem to be attuned to it. You already know the people that are chill with you. You already know the people that like you, but we just don't want the people that like us. We want the people that don't like us because they're cooler.
Maybe it's human nature.
Well, it's not all human nature. It's, some people are like that. Um, Not everybody's like that. And yeah, you need to filter out the bad, filter out the things that are no. I think a lot of life is about saying no to stuff and saying no to people and finding the stuff that you actually care about and like, stuff that's for you.
Yeah. I guess when you find the stuff that you care about and like you're saying, it's very easy to filter out the stuff that you don't want because everything pretty much falls outside that circle. It's much easier
Yeah.
to kind of say no to those things.
Yeah, and the first step is knowing clearly, specifically what you want. If you want to meet a person, what kind of person do you want them to be? Do you want them to be like do you want them to be like a, say you're meeting another, say you're talking to some guy at the coffee shop or something, if the guy is like shy and he can't even talk to you, is that somebody that you want to be friends with? Probably not, because, maybe you don't resonate with him. So why would he resonate with you kind of thing?
Mhm.
Certain qualities that you want to be around different people.
Yeah, that's some stuff to
Because
think over.
because what ends up happening is you end up adopting the traits of the people that you hang out with anyway. Because as much as we like to think we're our own people, that's not really the case. You end up adopting these traits. You end up thinking, oh man, this guy skips going to the gym. Oh yeah, if I skip it once, it's not a big deal. Oh yeah, second time, third time, then it starts influencing your life. Oh yeah, this guy doesn't really, he's not really into too much, bettering himself. He likes drinking and doing drugs and stuff. Oh yeah, and like, what's the big deal? Blah blah blah. And then these things start like affecting you and start changing up who you are a little bit more.
So it's like osmosis almost.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very hard to differentiate between um, you influencing other people versus them influencing you.
That's, yeah.
And
Some
even the
very
people
deep
that you think
stuff.
are social media
Yep.
influencers are the most influenced people. They're only doing these things because of the wider majority of people accepting that kind of culture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for
Like
sure.
if you're an outlier, you won't get social media followers, so you won't be an influencer. If you're on the extreme end of some spectrum of something, like let's say fashion, or let's say ideology or political thought or something, you won't be an influencer because nobody will listen to you because you're so far outside the spectrum. So you kind of have to conform to different things just to be likable on a large scale. But I think you should think about what you value and what you care about, and be that to a small group of people that appreciate it. I think that's a more powerful idea, something that resonates with me a bit more.
I guess because you found your sense of belonging, or as the French would say, raison d'être, or I think they say like reason to be, right? Like you have your own people or community, right? That you feel relates to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
I wanted to ask you another thing. You said you studied in Sydney, right? University as
Yeah.
well. What was that experience like? What did you study, and what was the experience like in that particular university?
Yeah, so I studied law, bachelor of science at UNSW, and the experience is good. It's a very concentrated uni in the sense of like the campus is like a pretty much a rectangle, like maybe a kilometer long by like two, maybe like half a kilometer wide, or maybe 800 meters wide. And yeah, it's a very densely populated international uni. It's like one in three students is from an international, they're international. And it was good. It was a difficult uni in the sense of people are very antisocial in there for some reason. A lot of engineering, those STEM subjects where people tend to be antisocial in general. Um, Experience was all right. It wasn't the best. I mean, I ended up making a lot of friends, but I can see why it's hard for people to make a lot of friends. You can go on the UNSW Reddit and people all complaining about not having any friends and blah, blah, blah. And I think it either attracts those kinds of people or it doesn't really promote them to differentiate themselves from each other because, you know, it's just I don't know, it's a highly ranked uni, but it's not really, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that fun of a uni to me. Didn't seem like it had that fun vibe to it.
Okay, it is highly ranked and it's quite reputable, even on the world rankings. But I guess you're saying in terms of socialization, there wasn't much opportunity.
I mean, I make the most of it, but yeah, it wasn't as fun as I would have liked uni to be. For example, you can't be in a group project, right? And the person that's in your group, his level or her level of English proficiency is so low that it's like the communication is just not there. How can you even engage with somebody? They don't speak the language, let alone get them being at the uni that you are also doing in the same degree that you're doing. Like that's a bit tough. Some people literally their English is so poor. Even if you go to the uni and you ask them, hey, you ask a person like international guy, hey, where's some people, like if you ask them, hey, where's this building? They'll be like, oh, I don't speak English. Man, you're at uni. You go to the same uni as me. How does that happen? Maybe the person didn't want to talk to me, but they even so, the English is very poor. So how can they actually communicate? So that all feeds into the difficulty of of connecting with people there. But yeah, it's an experience.
Weren't there clubs, associations, and stuff like this? That I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there were, but I don't know. They just didn't seem. Yeah, I mean, they weren't that interesting, in my opinion. There were some of them were all right, but the uni has too skewed of a proportion of people towards the nerdy type of people and equaling introverted, equaling this, equaling that. So if everybody's like that, it's not really, you need to have some diversity in personality type or something like that, you know what I mean? But the subjects at the uni that it's known for attracts a large proportion of people. And also a large proportion of people live quite far from the uni because the uni is kind of in the eastern suburbs. So you have to catch a a bus from Central to get to the uni. Now it's a light rail. But before it was just difficult to get to. Travel times are long. That influences how long you want to stay there, whether or not you want to stay after work. Especially because I lived at home still while I was going to uni. So all these things kind of influence each other and then make it up to be what it is right now.
Would you rate it at least for academics, for people that are
Yeah, for
considering going?
academics, it's good, but
Yep.
yeah, but you're probably not going to be happy if you go there.
Okay. And
Unless
where?
you're a killer that you can, unless you're a person who can make friends, who can make a lot of friends. But I reckon the average person at UNSW is not happy.
Okay. And where did that lead you to now in terms of your occupation?
Yeah, so right now I work as a data solutions like lead, where I lead a couple of people overseas, offshore and onshore in data. So I worked in the legal industry. I made a move to London. I moved into tech, and then I kind of from tech, that's about 2018, 2019, I became an independent consultant, started working in different industries, media, manufacturing, automotive, and then eye care, which is government insurance. Eye care was my first real technical data role. I learned coding there, Python, R, SQL, bit of this, bit of that. Automations, even Gen AI. I was working on a project with that. And then now I'm at Suncorp, where I help deliver reporting, dashboards, so people can track the performance of their insurance claims and how much they're selling and what it's incurring on the costs and things like that. So yeah, that's my career history in brief.
And do you plan to stay there in the future, or do you have any exciting
Yeah.
plans?
Yeah, I plan to stay there. It's a good place to be. And yeah, we'll see where things take me.
Okay. There's one more thing I actually wanted to ask, and I thought that viewers might find this interesting. Maybe you could touch a little on your cultural background.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so my cultural background is, so I'm South Indian. I'm from my family's from Kerala, from Kerala. Um, we're Keralite Muslims. So from my mum's side, a few hundred years ago, like 300 years ago or so, they became Muslim. They converted from Christianity to Islam. From my dad's side, I think they were originally Muslim for a long time, maybe probably 1,000 years or something, because they would have come from the Middle East or from out of India. But so typically in Kerala, most of the Muslims are Sunni Shafi'i Muslims, which is a sect of Sunni Islam, and that is kind of influenced from the Middle East, typically the Arabian Peninsula, which is like Yemen and countries around there. Now, the rest of India, the Muslims are actually Hanafi, so they have different rules slightly. But my family, my parents became Shia in the late 80s, sorry, late 70s, 80s-ish, because of the influence from the Islamic Revolution in Iran. And that brought the idea of Shiaism to the world stage for them. And they got more exposure to it. So even though people are Muslims, they actually don't know too much about each other's sects. Just like Christians, typically, they have no clue. Average Christian person has no clue about another sect of Christianity. They don't know the differences. They don't even know what the sects are, what the different sects are in their own religion. Similarly, in Islam, people are pretty unaware of what else is going on in the world. They're very like tunnel focused. They don't really think about stuff like that. But thankfully, my parents thought about it, and they came into Shiaism. Um, before I was born, and then I was born Shia, and then I became, in that Shia culture. So initially, they kind of gravitated away from the Malayali culture towards like the Pakistani Shias that were here in Sydney, and that's who a lot of their friends were growing up when I was growing up. From there, they kind of moved a little bit towards the Afghan type of Shia, because of the centers, Islamic centers that you go to, your friends, blah, blah, blah. And then for me, I kind of moved also, my friends were more Arab Shias, Iraqi, Lebanese, and some Afghan, Iranian. So I kind of like know a little bit about their culture as well. But it really taught me that Religion or Shiaism or Islam is not really cultural specific. I think it's very independent of culture. So as a Malayali Muslim, I go to like a mosque that is predominantly Iraqi, for example. And I've been to Iraq as well. I went on a trip to Iraq last year to see different shrines of the imams there, and I walked from Karbala to Najaf. Sorry, from Najaf to Karbala. It's a good experience. Like it's fun. It's a really good experience. But yeah, my cultural identity is kind of ambiguous, but my religious identity is that I'm Shia, Ithna Ashari Shia, which is like 12er Shia. Believe in 12 imams after the Prophet. And yeah, that's a little bit about my culture and
Beautiful.
religion.
So you're not really in touch too much with the Kerala cultural side. Like, do you celebrate any festivals like Onam or?
Yeah, I'm not really that in touch with that side of things. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I just don't think I grew up that closely with it because probably um, self-clarification of your own religious identity was more important to me than cultural identity. Because the consequences of not adopting a culture is it's not that severe, it's not that significant. I still know what it is, like kind of, but I don't really have that much of an inclination towards practicing any cultural things, if that makes sense. I'm going to Kerala end of the year, actually. Well, not even end of the year. In 9 days, I'm leaving. So we'll see. I haven't been there for 10 years, so we'll see how that goes.
I'm sure things would have changed. And if you don't mind, do you have a minute to touch up on Iraq? Because that is a very fascinating country, where I think most of the world has not visited. So, what was it like visiting Iraq as a tourist?
Yeah, so I went to Iraq on this trip called the Arba'in. Walk or pilgrimage or something like that. It's not an official pilgrimage in Islam, but it's kind of like the biggest unofficial thing that there is. And when I say it's not official, Islam is very rule-based and codification of laws and ethics and things like that. Like in Islam, there are five main acts of worship, and all Muslims take it seriously, which is like praying, daily fasting in Ramadan, Hajj, which is the once in your life pilgrimage that you go to Mecca and you have certain rituals and rites to practice. And then you've got zakat, which is like the taxable things on certain grains and money and things like that, coins and stuff like that, and animals. And then you've got jihad, which is like the defense of your land. So these are the five main things. This thing I went to is called the Arba'in pilgrimage, which is to visit Karbala, which is where Imam Hussein is buried. And the Arba'in is 40 days after the anniversary of his martyrdom. So he's martyred on the 10th of Muharram, which is called Ashura. So as probably you would know, if living in Bahrain, that's a significant day for Shias. And then Arba'in is 40 days after that, which is the 20th of Safar the next month. Anyway, yeah, I went there. There was about 24 million people in the city of Karbala that day. I was there on the day. I made it on the day. So I started walking about 4 days beforehand. I'll start from the beginning really quick. I land in Baghdad. I stay with someone like a friend of a friend. They don't speak any English, but I used Google Translate and I made it work anyway. It was about 45 degrees daily on average during the day. And that wasn't even the extreme hot time. The hottest times it can get to 50s daily on average. And I'm talking about like it's actually above 50 some days and below 50. So it averages out to 50. Anyway, I spent about 5 days in Baghdad, went to Baghdad Mall. I went to a few different places where, for example, in Islam, in Shiaism, where they believe Jesus was born. So they believe Jesus was actually born in Iraq, where Abraham was from, where Moses spoke to God at the burning tree, which is a story across all the Abrahamic religions. Um, and a few interesting places. Iraq is really like the historical backbone of all the Abrahamic religions because Abraham was from Iraq. Christians, Jews, and Muslims agree on that. He's from Iraq. the king that tried to kill him by throwing him into the fire. That place is in Iraq as well. So all these places that are like 5,000 years old monuments and things. Anyway, I was stayed in Baghdad for 5 days. I didn't know anyone else there actually, except this person I was staying with. His name's Abu Murtada. He's a mad guy. I didn't eat. I didn't pay for any food. We spent the whole time there, 5 days taking me around different places, this and that. And then I got a bus, a mini bus, which is like basically a little Toyota Tarago or something like that. They took me to Hilla, which is Babylon, which is actually Babylon, the ancient city of Babylon. And then from there, I dropped my bags off at another friend's auntie's house. And this friend is in Sydney. So the time difference, I can't even call the auntie because I don't have their number. Google Maps works, but it doesn't have any of the street names. It's just a map with no street names. And then from there, I went to Najaf. And in Najaf, I met up with some Iranian people that I'd met before. And Iranian people typically have better English than the Iraqis, more education and whatnot. So I spent the night in Najaf. I went to Imam Ali's shrine. And yeah, so Imam Ali is the first Imam of the Shias, and he's the fourth Khalifa of the Muslims. And yeah, so I started walking from Najaf to Karbala with this Iranian guy, Sayyid Ilyas. We're still friends till now on Instagram and WhatsApp. And we walked, and the walk is about 3 days to Karbala. And it's not an official like pilgrimage, like in that strict definition, but it's more of a short show of loyalty towards Imam Hussein who's buried in Karbala. Anyway, that walk is very interesting. It's 90 kilometers. It's very hot, so we walk at night, afternoon to morning-ish, we walk. Now, the whole way, 90 kilometers, is filled with stalls, buildings, specifically for people to eat, sleep, get massages, blah, 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 everything that you ever need, shower, bathrooms, everything that you need, drinks, anything. And it's all free, 100% free. I didn't pay for anything. In fact, the whole Iraq trip, I never paid for any accommodation. And I bought one meal, which was KFC at Baghdad Mall, which gave me an upset stomach anyway. So it was like a waste. But I didn't pay for anything. You're eating like, fresh food straight from the frying pan, kebabs and everything. So 90 kilometers of this, you're getting everything that you need, and then you reach Karbala. You don't need to buy water either. You don't need to buy water. There's so much free water, like it's in bottled water, like in containers. And then you reach Karbala. I stayed at somebody else's house that I didn't know, and there was a couple of guys staying there. And then
Wow.
the Iranian TV station, somebody met me, and then they introduced me to them, and they interviewed me, and I was live on an interview on my phone, on national TV in Iran. And I spent a day in Karbala, and then I finally met up with my Australian friends. And meanwhile, I was back. I only took a backpack on this whole thing. I took a suitcase and left it at Baghdad, but I took a backpack on this whole walk, right? And then my slippers broke. Or sorry, because there's so many people. People started falling over each other at some point, and then I got up and left, and my slippers were lost, right? So I was walking around barefoot for like few hours there, just on the road barefoot. And the roads are not like our roads, they're like a bit dusty and stuff. Anyway, I meet up with my Australian friends, and these guys have got a mad hotel. They're eating breakfast, like they got five different kinds of eggs there. They got tea, coffee, they got bread. And I rock up to their hotel with no shoes and full dirty, sweaty shirt. It's just funny. Um,
Gosh.
and then yeah, that guy helped me buy some slippers and whatnot. But yeah, it was a good experience. It was
Crazy.
crazy, actually, kind of a bit of a life-changing experience in the
Yeah.
sense of um you just see a extreme level of like generosity of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you just never ever see that kind of people anywhere else in the world. Like no
Yeah.
way, nowhere else. More generous than your family to you. People want you to stay in their house. Like when I told people I'm from Australia, they want me to stay in their house. Keep people giving you things.
Yeah.
And I never forget this one time. I was so on the walk. You stayed because the walk's 90 Ks. We probably took us 3 days. Me and that Iranian guy. I stayed at this one place, and this guy, this oh, his time up. Last thing, this kid was like, asked me in Iraqi, how many wives do I have in Australia? And I was like, oh, bro, I don't have any. And this kid, he's like 19 or something. He's like, yeah, I got two. I got one in that village and one in that village. And bro, the guy's not even wearing shoes. He's walking, he's not even wearing shoes. Oh, he's wearing like slippers and like dusty clothes. This guy's like, yeah, I got one wife there and I got one wife there. The guy's like 19 or 20. And he had
Wow.
his kid there, and the kid was like 1 year or 2 years old. It's pretty funny. And he's mucking around. Like the guy himself was like acting like a kid. He had two wives. And it just made me think about like, yeah, what like are people happy here? Because we got like a nice house and we got Medicare and stuff? Or is this guy with two wives in the middle of Iraq desert, bro? Is this guy happy? This guy doesn't know how to do much, bro, but he's pretty. It seems like the social dynamics, interpersonal relationships people have with each other, so much better. Anyway, thanks for your time. And we're
Perspective. That is crazy perspective. So we've talked about a lot, life in Sydney
yeah,
versus Melbourne, University of New South Wales, the experience there. Um, Visiting as a tourist in Iraq, which not many people have had the privilege of doing, which I think you'd recommend.
yeah,
And
definitely.
awesome. So we've covered a lot. And thank you so much, Aftab, for being here. I know that anyone who's watching this will learn a tremendous amount. So all I can say is thank you so much, and hopefully a part two.
Beautiful. We can do that.
Thanks so much, Aftab. Catch you, brother.
Take care, bro.